Okay, previously we talked about the impact driver, and it's primarily used for driving screws, and it not only rotates, but when it meets resistance, it actually hammers as a twisting hammering motion at the same time, okay, to drive the screws more effectively. All right, so let's talk about the bits. What's the tool that goes into this impact driver? Okay, so you can see here, let me show you, I've got a set, we call these just the driver bit set, and inside of here are some of the most common types. We have T15, T20, T25, P2, which is Phillips, flat tips, hex, square, and P3, which is Phillips. Okay, you might also see a convenient set like this. You might also see a convenient set like this, several different types and sizes in a convenient carrying case, right? So what are the different bits? Well, let's talk about the first one that's very, very common construction screw. Is called the TORX bit. And it looks like a star shape, okay? A six-pointed star. TORX, okay? TORX. You'll notice it on the box of screws because it'll look like this right here. See the T25 and the star-shaped bit? Okay? So the very common and very reliable TORX bit comes in many different sizes. Now this is just some hand wrenches that I want to show you, but this can show you some of the different sizes. All of these are that six-pointed star, as you can see. But if you look at the labels here, T10, T15, T20, T25, T30, those are all very common sizes. So in our fabrication lab, the one common ones we use are T15, T20, and T25. Those are the most common that we will use. Now, here's a difference between a T15 and a T25. You can see they're both star-shaped, and although the head is a little bit different, this one has a tapered head. Okay, so it's meant to go below the surface. This one has a flat head, so it's meant to go above the surface. But if you just concentrate on the star shape itself, you can see that this one is the T25. It is a bigger star than the T15. Okay? Here are the corresponding bits. Here is a T15 and a T25. So you can see that, again, these bits are both star-shaped, both six-pointed star. One is obviously a bigger size than the other. So what can happen? Please always make sure you're getting the right size bit. So if I try to use that T15 and that T25, it'll kind of fit, but it'll strip out. And obviously, if I try to go the other way, the T25 bit into the T15, it won't fit at all, okay? You may find some instances where something fits, but it's loose. A couple of things to check. Number one, check on the box itself. So you can see right here, it says T15, okay? So I know I'm going to use a T15 driver. And it's very small on these, but usually somewhere printed on the bit itself, you rotate it slowly, you'll be able to see the imprinting of what the size is. Okay, here's an example of a T25. You can see the writing on there, T25, right here. So make sure you match the proper bit with the proper screw, and you can even double check just to make sure they fit in there snugly, okay? That's the TORX set, T-O-R-X, T15, T20, and T25 are the most common. Okay, what's up next? The familiar Phillips bit, okay? Now, you may not be aware of it, but there are 3 different sizes of Phillips as well. And I just have some hand screwdrivers again to demonstrate. But you'll see this smaller one is a P1. This medium-sized one is a P2, Phillips 2. And then this larger one is a P3, Phillips 3. You can see the differences there. Most of the wood screws that we are going to use that are Phillips in the fabrication lab are going to be a number 2. But again, just check the bit. Take the driver and take the screw and make sure that it's a good match and that it's a snug fit with little play in it, okay, before you start. But most of the screw bits we're going to use for Phillips are going to be a number 2. Just keep in mind, though, there is a number 1 Phillips, there's a number 2 Phillips, and a number 3, varying sizes. Okay, what else is possible to find in the fabrication lab? Well, not very likely, but we still do use the flat tip or the straight bit, okay? Not very common at all because it's not great for automated driving. If you have a hand screwdriver, flat tip is very, very, very common, but when you're using a driver, it can very easily slip out. So not very common to use this with a driving tool. We also have a hex bit, right? So this again has that 1/4 inch hex shank so that it fits into your impact driver, but instead of a conventional kind of Phillips screw bit, it actually mates to a hex head, okay? So, and these actually have little magnets in them. So it'll magnet in there and it won't fall out, okay? So this allows you to drive this type of screw that has a hex head on it, okay? Hex head screw. All right, another common one is a square bit. Let's zoom in on there, okay? So this one would mate with a screw that has a square opening to match. Okay, you might have noticed while I was showing you there are different sizes of these bits. So I showed you one that was very, very short, right? I showed you one that was very, very short like this. I've showed you others that were sort of a medium size. And then you may have noticed when I first opened the kit, there are some even longer ones than that. So you can see these come in different lengths. But basically, this is going to be how much reach you need, right? This size is very, very common. And I want you to notice something very important about this is this little depression right here, this little neck down section, right? Okay, what that does is that's what allows this to fit in and lock into that chuck. So when I press that in, there are 3 little balls in there that collapse and grip that. And that's why I have to pull on that collar. Remember in the previous video I showed you, you have to pull on that collar to release it, right? So if you do not have a bit with this little reduced section here, this little neck down section, it will not properly lock in to the impact driver. If you see, if I try to use this ordinary bit with no neck down portion, if I put it in there, it just comes right back out, and that doesn't stay in at all, okay? This little short one is designed to be used with an extension, okay? So here's an extension. All it has is the 1/4 inch drive hex here, and then it has a receptacle part here. You'll notice this bit that simply fits down in there, and it's magnetic, okay? So if I ever see this very, very short bit without that little collar, neck down, reduced area, I need to use an extension. Now, extensions come in different sizes. Here's a shorter one and a longer one. Again, you need to make sure that it fits properly down in there, okay? And then also, here's an even longer one. If you need a great deal of reach, you could use that one as well, and it locks in as well. Hello, Mr. Gels. Okay, one last thing. I want to make sure that you know, remember I showed you this hex bit? And it's going to be used for a hex head screw like this. Please don't confuse this with an extension, okay? You may look at these and say, these are both extensions. However, they're not. You can see then the depth alone, right? So this one is meant to accept that short, very short bit, right, and lock in. Do not try to use a hex bit. Doesn't fit all the way in. Too shallow, okay? Just make sure that you don't confuse those two. Now, you also might see this type of bit here, and you're going to say, well, that's kind of cool. It's a Phillips on one side and a flat tip on the other, okay? This is a very old style bit that was used before impact drivers really became popular. It will not fit in the impact driver. It fits in there, but it doesn't lock in, okay? This really isn't effective at all. These were really designed back when you were using remember the drill chuck. So I could actually, if you see a bit like this, it's really only designed for use in this style of drill chuck. It will not fit in the shorter impact style chuck, okay? This is rarely used, but you might see one of these. It's a combination.